The tension in the chamber was thick as Representative Jim Jordan leaned into his microphone, eyes locked on Representative Jasmine Crockett. Cameras rolled. Staffers froze mid-step. Jordan's voice, sharp and commanding, cut through the silence. "Representative Crockett," he began, "do you even understand the implications of what you're defending? Or are you just here for the soundbites?" A murmur spread across the committee room. Crockett raised an eyebrow but didn't flinch. She slowly reached for her mic, adjusted it with poise, and offered the faintest smirk, the kind that said she was more than ready. "I understand perfectly, Mr. Jordan," she replied, her tone steady, each word calculated. "But let me make something crystal clear before this circus act of yours goes any further." Jordan tilted his head, clearly not expecting her to push back so early. "I came here with facts," Crockett continued. "Not Fox News headlines." The room fell into a stunned hush. Jordan leaned forward, his voice rising with impatience. "Then enlighten us. Because right now, all I'm hearing is attitude." A few Republican members chuckled under their breath. But Crockett didn't blink. "Attitude," she echoed, placing her papers down with a calm, deliberate motion. "No, Mr. Jordan. What you're hearing is a woman who's tired of being interrupted by men who confuse volume with substance." The Democratic side of the chamber reacted immediately, low coos, and exchanged glances, while the Republicans shifted in their seats. Jordan scoffed. "Don't try to spin this into a gender issue. This is about accountability." Crockett nodded. "Then let's talk about accountability. Like how your party spent years screaming about the Constitution but suddenly forgets it when it's convenient, or when it's time to protect your political allies." Jordan's expression tightened. "And while we're at it," she added, flipping through a folder, "you've repeatedly obstructed real investigations, twisted facts in committee hearings, and wasted taxpayer money chasing conspiracy theories that even your base doesn't believe anymore." A few gasps rippled through the audience section. Crockett held up a printed transcript. "Would you like me to read your own words from last year's hearing? Or should I just email them to you with the subject line, hypocrisy?" Jordan's jaw clenched. "You think you're clever, but all you're doing is deflecting." Crockett didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. Her calm confidence only made her words sting more. "I'm not deflecting," she replied coolly. "I'm exposing. There's a difference." She stood slightly, one hand resting on the desk, her eyes locked on his. "Let's talk about how you weaponize these hearings for political theater. You don't want answers. You want headlines. You're not here to protect the people, you're here to protect power." Jordan opened his mouth, but she cut him off with surgical precision. "And you know what scares you?" she said, voice low and firm. "It's not me. It's what I represent, a new generation that's not afraid to call out your games. That knows how to read, research, and call BS when we see it." The crowd behind the press line stiffened. Reporters furiously typed. One camera panned slightly to catch Jordan's reaction, a tight-lipped stare that gave away more than he intended. "I came prepared today," Crockett said. "But I didn't come to play." Jim Jordan leaned back in his chair, clearly rattled, his eyes darting toward the chairman, but no one was rushing to save him. He cleared his throat and tried again, softer this time. "Well, Representative Crockett, since you brought up facts, maybe you can explain why your party refuses to investigate blatant government overreach." Crockett didn't even look down at her notes. "Overreach?" she repeated, shaking her head slightly. "You mean like gerrymandering districts to suppress votes? Like banning books because they make certain people uncomfortable? Like calling for the arrest of your political opponents while pretending to champion the Constitution?" She leaned forward, folding her hands. "Let's not pretend your outrage is about principles. It's about control." There was silence. Jordan's lips parted slightly, searching for a reply. Nothing came. "You've made a career out of shouting over people and hoping no one notices that you're not actually saying anything," Crockett said, her voice still steady. But I'm not afraid of noise. I'm focused on truth. Jordan looked down at his papers. His bluster, gone. And before you try to pivot again, she added sharply, I suggest you check your record. Because I've read every line of your voting history. And trust me, you don't want me to start reading it out loud. The room broke into a tense, almost reluctant applause from the public gallery. The chairman tapped his gavel once, lightly. Order, please, he muttered, but no one truly expected the tension to ease. All eyes remained locked on the exchange. Jordan forced a smile, a practiced political grin. Well, I'm glad you've done your homework, Congresswoman. Maybe next time, you'll bring solutions instead of speeches. Crockett tilted her head slightly, unbothered. You want solutions? Let me start with one, stop pretending corruption only exists when it's politically convenient for you. Jordan's smile faded fast. She continued, lifting a stack of printed documents. I've submitted 3 separate amendments on justice reform this year alone, each one blocked by your allies without debate. You're not looking for solutions, Mr. Jordan. You're blocking them. She held up a page. This one. A bill addressing police accountability, based on bipartisan recommendations. It never even got a hearing. Why? Because it doesn't help your narrative. Jordan remained silent, eyes narrowed. Your brand is outrage. Mine is action, Crockett concluded. Gasps and quiet ahs echoed from a few members in the background. And by the way, she added, leaning back in her chair, next time you try to lecture me on policy, come prepared with more than catchphrases and bad faith. Jordan blinked, staring straight ahead, jaw tight. He had come for a performance. She gave him a clinic. For a long second, Jordan didn't speak. He rifled through his notes, but the pages now seemed useless, each one a shield that had already been pierced. He finally looked up. You're good at theatrics, I'll give you that, he muttered, trying to reclaim ground. Crockett gave a slight shrug. Funny. I was thinking the same about you, except I came with facts. Laughter, short and stifled, rippled across the room. Even a few aides near the back cracked smiles behind their clipboards. Jordan shifted in his seat. Crockett leaned in one last time. Let me tell you what the American people are tired of. They're tired of watching you weaponize hearings while ignoring real problems. They're tired of sound bites over substance. And they're definitely tired of politicians who spend more time chasing cameras than crafting laws. She held his gaze. And if that makes you uncomfortable, good. That's the first step toward accountability. A thick silence followed. No interruptions. No counterattack. Just the quiet realization that the room, and the narrative, had shifted. Jordan turned away, finally conceding the mic with no further comment. And Jasmine Crockett? She didn't just survive the confrontation. She owned it. The chairman exhaled through his nose, clearly aware that the dynamic in the room had changed. Thank you, Representative Crockett, he said, his voice flat, but even he couldn't hide the hint of respect in his tone. Crockett nodded once and calmly gathered her papers. No smirk. No gloating. Just a quiet confidence that radiated louder than any mic ever could. Across the aisle, some members of Jordan's own party avoided eye contact. One of his aides whispered something urgently into his ear, but he didn't respond. He was still processing. Outside the chamber, Twitter had already exploded. Clips of the exchange hit trending status within minutes. Crockett versus Jordan was now a viral moment, and the caption wrote itself, Congresswoman shuts down grandstanding with cold, hard facts. News anchors scrambled to rerun the clip. Analysts on both sides started dissecting every sentence. But no matter the spin, the optics were undeniable. A veteran Republican firebrand had tried to corner a rising Democratic force. And she had dismantled him, in real time. Back in her office, Jasmine Crockett removed her blazer and let out a breath. The adrenaline was wearing off, but the focus remained sharp. Her team hovered around, eyes lit with energy. "You torched him," her chief of staff said, barely hiding a grin. "We've already got interview requests lined up." Crockett raised an eyebrow. "From who?" "CNN. MSNBC. Even one from a conservative podcast, though that one's probably a setup." She waved it off. "They can wait. I didn't go in there for airtime. I went in there to stop the nonsense." Meanwhile, across the Capitol, Jordan sat stone-faced in his own office, surrounded by silence and a flickering TV screen showing the replay on loop. His staff had no spin. No easy line to save face. He had underestimated her, badly. Crockett's office, on the other hand, was buzzing. Not just because of the moment, but because of what it meant. "This isn't just viral," one aide said. "It's a turning point. You just showed the country what fearless looks like." Crockett nodded slowly. "No," she said. "I showed them what prepared looks like. Fearless comes later." Later that evening, as news cycles replayed the exchange from every angle, something unusual began happening. Messages flooded in, not just from Crockett's base, but from independents, first-time voters, and even a few quiet voices from across the aisle. One message stood out: "I don't usually agree with you, Congresswoman, but today, you said what needed to be said." It wasn't about partisanship anymore. It was about clarity. Backbone. Truth. Crockett sat by her window, scrolling through the reactions, her phone buzzing non-stop. She finally paused, placing it face down. Her legislative aide peeked in. "Want to prep for tomorrow's floor vote?" She nodded. "Yeah. But first, let's clean up that committee transcript. I want everything I said on record. Word for word. No edits." "You got it," he said with a smirk. "You just made history today. Might as well preserve it." Meanwhile, political strategists on the right scrambled to minimize the damage. Calls were made. Talking points drafted. But none could erase the image now stamped into the public's memory: Jim Jordan, silenced. Jasmine Crockett, ascendant. And she was just getting started. The next morning, headlines blared across every major outlet: "Crockett dominates heated hearing, Jordan left speechless, Congresswoman delivers viral takedown with surgical precision, a star is rising on Capitol Hill, and she has receipts." Even cable pundits known for minimizing Democratic wins were forced to acknowledge the moment. One conservative host grumbled, "I don't agree with her politics, but that was brutal." Jordan walked into that one unarmed. In the Capitol cafeteria, staffers whispered over coffee. Members who once overlooked Crockett now greeted her with careful respect. Later that afternoon, as she walked into another hearing room, reporters rushed forward. "Congresswoman, any comments on yesterday's confrontation?" She stopped briefly. "Only this," she said calmly. "If you're going to come at me, bring facts, not performance." Click. 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 Cameras flashed. The quote spread before she even took her seat. In one powerful session, Jasmine Crockett hadn't just defended herself, she'd shifted the balance of the room, possibly the chamber. And somewhere deep in the Capitol, Jim Jordan sat in quiet reflection, realizing too late, he came to embarrass her. But instead, he made her a force. By the end of the week, Jasmine Crockett's office was inundated with speaking invitations, interview requests, and even quiet nods from members who once kept their distance. She had become a symbol of something larger, not just resistance, but readiness. In a closed-door caucus meeting, a senior Democratic member leaned over and whispered to her, "That was one of the cleanest takedowns I've seen in years. You just made him look like a freshman." Crockett smiled politely but kept her focus. "Appreciate that," she replied. "But I'm not here for takedowns. I'm here for progress." Still, the shift was undeniable. Committees where her voice had once been sidelined now paused when she spoke. Lobbyists took note. So did opponents. And Jim Jordan? He avoided committee confrontations for the rest of the month. When pressed by a journalist about the incident, he gave a brief, dismissive answer, "We'll stay focused on the issues." But no matter how he tried to downplay it, the footage lived on, millions of views, countless remixes, and political analysts calling it a masterclass in composure and command. Crockett hadn't just defended herself. She had drawn a line in the marble floors of Congress. That weekend, Jasmine Crockett returned home to her district for a town hall. The room was packed, not with cameras or politicians, but with regular people. Teachers. Nurses. Small business owners. Young voters who had never attended a town hall before. When she walked in, the room rose to its feet. "We saw what you did," a woman called out from the front row. "And we finally felt like someone was fighting back, the right way." Crockett stepped up to the mic, a rare moment of softness in her expression. "I appreciate that," she said. "But I want y'all to understand, that moment wasn't just about me. It was about all of us being tired of the noise. The games. The disrespect." She paused, eyes scanning the room. "I won't promise perfection," she continued. "But I'll promise this, I'll always come prepared. I'll always come with truth. And I won't back down just because someone expects me to." Applause erupted. What started as a confrontation in Congress had become a national conversation about integrity, voice, and accountability. And for Jim Jordan? He'd sparked a moment he couldn't control. He'd tried to corner her, and instead, helped build her platform. Weeks later, the ripple effects of the hearing still lingered across the political landscape. Jasmine Crockett had become more than just a trending name, she was a presence. Headlines shifted. Invitations to policy panels, national roundtables, and primetime interviews poured in. Even longtime figures on Capitol Hill had begun referring to her with a different tone, no longer dismissive, now deliberate. But for Crockett, it was never about the spotlight. Late one evening, alone in her office, she looked out over the Capitol dome, her reflection faint in the glass. The clip had gone viral. The sound bites were everywhere. But none of that changed why she was here. The real work, the hard work, that was just beginning. Down the hall, a young staffer peeked in. "Congresswoman," he said, "Jordan's office just pulled out of next week's debate panel." She didn't even look surprised. "Tell the moderator I'll still be there. With facts." The door shut gently. And in that quiet, one truth rang clear: Jim Jordan came for a confrontation. Jasmine Crockett gave him a reckoning, and in doing so, she sent a message to every seat in Congress: come correct, or don't come at all.